Hey everybody, welcome to Swedenborgian Life Live. Today we are going to be looking at true Christianity. Yeah, that's right. My name is Curtis Chouts, and I'll be your host, and here's Dr. Jonathan Rose.
Hey Curtis.
Thanks so much for coming on to chat today.
So fun.
And all of you, thank you so much for joining us. If you don't mind, just kick it off. Let's like and subscribe. And if you are subscribed, you got to click that bell, or else you're never going to know when we put out a video.
That's right.
And you don't miss what we're about to say today. It's true Christianity, man. Before we get into something as significant and serious as that, the sort of not just a definition of a particular religious system, but really what Swedenborg saw as the future of human spirituality. Let's warm up a little bit, right?
Okay.
And we'll warm up alongside all of you in the section we call Icebreaker. This is where we're going to answer a question that is related to the topic. We don't know exactly how it is yet, but it'll get us in that state of mind. We get all of our bad answers out here. And we want you all to play along. If you're in the chat, write your answers to this question. And at the end of the show, we're going to compile them and read them to get a sense of how does everybody else think about all this
very
kind of
show.
stuff.
That's great.
At the very end of this program, believe it or not. Don't skip there yet, though. So here's the question. What is a truth that you've managed, Dr. Jonathan Rose, to embody in your life?
Well, I would like to say peace and love to all humankind.
But you should have seen him at rehearsal
I
today.
fall so much short of that sometimes.
Kidding. Yeah.
But what I feel like I have been able to embody is like just that idea that you work it, meaning that if the book says pray, I'll try prayer. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'll try it, and I'll try to read about what it is and try to do it that way. And if the book says repent, I'll try to do repentance, and I'll try to do the daily kind, and then once or twice a year I'll try to do the deep dive kind of thing, and keep in there, and then in my daily march just trying to bite my tongue or try to observe myself and see what's going on and prevent the worst of myself from leaking out onto other people, sort of thing. So
appreciate it.
And I do feel like for myself, I don't know what it's like to be around me, but most people are just cringing and making faces most of the time. But inside myself, I think it does build a happiness and a peace over time, just gradually, So.
Well, I love it, and it's fascinating for us to hear me talking about embodying a truth. And there you're talking about principles and living those. Isn't a truth just something you got to know?
Yes.
And is that a little foreshadowing of what could be true Christianity? Okay, I'll stop stalling. I don't feel like I've embodied any truths permanently. I have had times when I was trying hard at them, and that I've tried consistently at over the years. And the one that I want to bring out for show and tell here is yes, yes, no, no. So it's when Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything other than that is from the evil one or from evil. And Swedenborg gives this internal meaning to it where he talks about, celestial angels, heavenly angels, not really arguing about what's true, but just we know what's good and we're going to go by it. Well, how that applies in my little self is I used to be very vulnerable to getting caught up in the mental thicket. Like as soon as some kind of concern or worry or complexity that would lead me to an upsetting picture of life came in there, I had to wrestle with it and grapple with it and think on it, and that just makes you just spiral all the way down. So I've gotten pretty good at when something is trying to draw me into a view of life that is opposite the view that I get out of Swedenborg's concepts. I can say to it, and really it's usually framed in terms of, concern about your own reputation, all these things that we're trying to get away from that. I can just say like, yes, yes, no, no. Like if I ever feel like my mind is trying to argue me into something, I'll say like, no, I don't do that.
That's great.
So
the mental picture that comes to mind from what you're saying is that biblical story where the sacrifice of Isaac that doesn't happen, but they lift up their eyes and then they see this ram with its horns caught in a thicket. That sort of picture of the mental, that's what came to mind when you mentioned that.
It doesn't mean that I never allow for counter arguments in my mind, but I feel like I've gotten decently good at sniffing out when like this is just a mental lawyer trying to get me to bite on something. So that's one of mine. What's one of yours? We'd love to hear your answers. We'll round them up at the end of the show. All right, you feel warm?
Yeah,
I feel
that was
warm.
good.
Let's get in there.
I actually do.
Good. Let's talk about some true Christianity. We continue our circuit through the nature of everything here. We're getting close to ending it.
Oh.
But this is an important
Yeah.
stop on the train. So what we're doing is giving you a new way to think about just about everything in life, which is what Swedenborg does. And we're giving it to you in the way we found it. This is
Right. In the box it came in.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Swedenborg has all these concepts that we've built this YouTube channel around. And we're talking here about not only building a YouTube channel, but using these as mental tools as we go through our life. And he originally published all these in a set of books. And so we want to go through and show you like that. Some of the packaging teaches you about how to use the ideas in the first place. There's an instruction manual in the way things were delegated or dictated or whatever. So today, what book are we talking about today, and what can we get out of it? So what are we doing?
If I had the memo right way up when I read that, I think we're talking about true Christianity tonight. True Christianity, which you'd have to say is kind of a bold title isn't it?
Extremely combative, or on one hand, if you already have a fondness for Christianity, you'd say, what do you do in true Christianity? Or if you have no fondness for Christianity, true Christianity. Here we go. So let's dig ourselves out of this hole.
Right, and the long title is really a mouthful, but I think it's worth saying before I read the whole thing out to you, is that back in the day, those titles would be used, they'd appear in journals as a little notice of a book, so the more stuff you got in your title, people would know what your book was about and stuff.
So we're hedging for Swedenborg.
And it was also used sometimes as posters.
Yeah.
So here it is, I mean, it's long, but true Christianity containing a comprehensive theology of the new church that was predicted by the Lord, meaning the new church that the Lord predicted, in Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 to 14. That's right, he has a biblical reference right on the title page, and Revelation 21, verses 1 and 2. So you get an Old Testament reference, a New Testament reference about what this new church is. What's the biblical underpinning of the idea of that? So it's kind of aimed at theologians a little, you know what I mean? Like it's got a theological bent to that title.
It's funny that it is, and it's the most theological sounding book he wrote. However, I just have been deep into this book lately, and there's so much spiritual food in there that I'm glad we're.
Oh, it's great.
But you may not always come across it with this short title.
This is the same thing that you encounter called true Christian religion, which is a more sort of letter for letter, word for word translation of the original title.
Sure.
The New Century Edition changed it to True Christianity because the word religion has become more and more of a kind of academic word. And so it's kind of weird to say true religion. You wouldn't take a course in college in true religion or something.
Well,
right?
you'd be going up against True Religion, the clothing brand. It makes those fancy jeans that are faded.
There
and
you
stuff
go.
Like that. You don't want none of that.
As soon as somebody else corners it, you got to let it go.
All right, so we got this book, we got the title, we got the jeans. What's the headline? What is this work about? This, if it's true Christianity, what's the message here?
Yeah, well, it's almost, I don't know how to put it in headline form, but it almost seems like a game of capture the flag to me.
Okay.
Like it's saying, no, that thing that's kind of getting worn out that you think of as Christianity is not true Christianity. I'm going to plant the flag right over here. This is what true Christianity looks like.
Okay.
And another headline might be that Christianity's best days are in the future, not the past.
Yeah.
Like Christianity is going to get better and better. And a lot of people sort of feel like, it's kind of winding down. It sort of had its run, and it was pretty strong in the Middle Ages, and now it's going away and something. But
another headline.
Now, you can do better than that.
No, I could do much worse, and I will. One headline could be, here's a new way to define all the Christian terms you know. I'm going to take things like the Trinity, I'm going to take things like redemption and repentance and reformation, and give you these expanded meanings for them that really weave this amazing tapestry together. Also, another headline could be, here's what they believe in heaven.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's kind of how he presents it.
I mean, you're going to see it in a second here. So
this is heavenly Christian. Just in case you're interested. I mean, this is the way they look at it in heaven.
So this is what, if you cracked open the book, there's 2 volumes of this book. This is the entire table of contents for the first volume. Oh yeah, as we play our game, what's in it? And what's in it is the table of contents. So in earlier books, we could never fit the whole table of contents in a page.
We'd have to pick a tiny subset. I mean, Heaven and Hell has 63 chapters in it, and this book is longer. This is just volume 1, and we got the whole thing there.
You look at just the first chapter is 97 pages, and look what he's got to cover. He talks about God the Creator, and we're going to give you everything about God, the oneness of God, the underlying divine reality, infinity, essence, the 3 O's, the creation of the universe.
Kind of started at the top there.
Yeah, and then we move into we start to get more and more Christian sounding, the Lord, the Redeemer, and Redemption. We start to talk about the Holy Spirit, then the Trinity.
And if you notice that chapter 1 is like what people have called the Father, chapter 2 is like the Son, and chapter 3 is like the Holy Spirit, which was shocking because he's had chapters, he's written a lot about the Lord before, but never broken it down that way into kind of a more traditional Christian layout, and yet what you find in there is about the unity, not the separateness of 3 persons.
And chapter 7 is telling because before this it was all kind of definitions, but you can see here that belonging alongside these is how to love people.
Right.
And this is part of what he's trying to steer the whole thing into, is how do you take all this theological fluff and turn it into life gets better?
It's kind of nice that you've got all that stuff, that early part up to chapter 6 is faith, and then you've got chapter 6 is a chapter on faith, and then it shifts over to goodwill, which is the practical loving others.
Yeah, and this book may have had the most interesting backstory to why and when he published it, for 2 reasons. So why and when?
Why and when? Well, the when was 1771, and if you know his dates, 1688 to 1772, this was only a year before it was like 9 months before he died.
Last thing he published.
This came out, the last work that he published, and this was the only book that he produced when he was actually under a full-out assault. You know, the Gothenburg consistory in the Swedish Lutheran Church, you know, was attacking followers of his, attacking his books, not him personally. But the teachings and some people who were early adopters.
They were trying to shut it down.
Attack.
Yeah, this was a defense. This is a counter offensive.
That's right.
On people
against charges of heresy and that kind of thing. And he's saying, hey, this is not heresy. What y'all say is heresy.
Yeah. He wasn't backing down. He wasn't saying, okay, well, yeah, this is actually a weird thing I thought of. He's saying, you are all weird. This is how you actually need to live. The structure you've set up to live your life by and build these churches around doesn't make sense and doesn't turn you into good people. This does, and this is what we'll have going forward. So
an innovation that he has in this, not a complete innovation, but it's pretty handy that in this book he actually tells you what the point of the book is, doesn't he?
Oh, that's right. So here, you know, we've had our take on it, but this is what he said the main point of the book is. The main point of this book is that the divine Trinity is united in the Lord.
That's so nice when you know, sometimes you can be reading all these pages and scratching your head and stuff. It's really nice when he breaks it right down and says, hey, here's the point of this book, by the way.
Which is different than what we've been saying. So he's wrong, but what does he mean by that? Just very brief.
Well, he didn't understand fully what he was doing. It's interesting that he focuses that particularly, and you notice those first 3 chapters were about Trinity and unity in God. His thesis is that, yes, there's a Father, and yes, there's a Son, and yes, there's a Holy Spirit, but there's all 3 aspects of the one God who was born into this world as Jesus Christ, and he had all those pieces in him. Father was like the soul, Son was like his body, the Holy Spirit was like all those miracles and wonderful things that he did and said and so on. And so that's his main point. And so it's both a book of belief. What should we be believing? We should believe in the unity of God. And what should we be doing? We should be loving each other and stopping being evil.
Let's take a look inside. Let's do our first and last.
Okay.
Here. So how do you open a book like
okay,
this if you're under attack and you're trying to set out the theology of what's he say, and then how do you close something
Well,
like that?
you'd probably start with an apology, wouldn't you? When you sort of say,
I didn't mean
I'm
to
sorry
offend
for
anyone.
taking up your time here. He starts with a heading that says, the faith of the new heaven and the new church.
Yeah.
Not just the new church, but the new heaven. He said, this is what they believe up there. So that's bold right there. And then he has a little sort of explanatory paragraph at the beginning. The faith of the new heaven and the new church is stated here in both universal and specific forms, which he has in this little opening section, to serve as the face of the work that follows, the doorway, here we are starting, that allows entry into the temple, and the summary that in one way or another contains all the details to follow. And then, in case anybody thought his heading was weird, he explains it. I say the faith of the new heaven and the new church because heaven where there are angels and the church in which there are people act together like the inner and the outer levels in a human being. We were talking a little bit about that last time, weren't we? Just how that works together. People in the church who love what is good because they believe what is true, and who believe what is true because they love what is good, are angels of heaven with regard to the inner levels of their minds.
That's you.
You can already be an angel. You already are an angel.
Thank you for watching.
After death, they come into heaven and enjoy happiness there according to the relationship between their love and their faith.
Which is an interesting nuanced point there, the relationship between love and faith.
Love and faith.
Not just
faith.
And not just love.
Not just love. Love and faith. The relationship between those two is what dials it in. And then he closes by saying, it's important to know that the new heaven that the Lord is establishing today, kind of an exciting thing for him to say there in 1771, has this faith as its face, doorway, and summary. And really, the core of the faith is what we just read from True Christianity 108 about the Trinity and the unity of God.
He's saying not just, look, I'm going to lay out some stuff to reform Christian church. This is what they're doing in heaven, and God is making a new heaven. This is where he gets his boldest.
Yeah,
you know?
And we should point out that this thing is in 2 volumes in the English.
Yeah.
So I got the paperback, deluxe paperback of Volume 1. Curtis has the deluxe hardcover of Volume 2.
Because I have means, you know?
That's right.
So this is how he ends it. There's an index to memorable relations after there, which is all the stories he tells of his trips into the spiritual
has
world.
Some nice little codas at the end.
But this is how he ends it. Okay. I foresee that many people who read the accounts of memorable occurrences that follow the chapters are going to believe that I've fabricated them out of my own imagination. Right? As I'm sure many people who have come across this online have thought the same thing.
Yep.
But I assert in truth that they were not made up. I truly saw and heard those things, and I did not hear or see them when my mind was in some sleepy state. I was in a state of full wakefulness. And why did this whole Swedenborg thing happen? Right?
Right.
Why do you have this scientist who goes off and this thing happens and he writes these books and it changes everything for his life?
And he's been publishing this stuff for 22 years, and here he finally says,
the Lord chose to manifest himself to me and assign me the task of presenting the teachings that will be part of his new church, which is meant by the New Jerusalem in the book of Revelation. For this purpose, he opened the inner levels of my mind or spirit, which allowed me to be in the spiritual world with angels and at the same time in the physical world with people.
So that's the purpose behind his spiritual experiences. He tells you, oh, well, there's even something more important than these spiritual experiences, which is why I'm having them, which is that, hey, we're creating a whole new thing here.
This has gone on now for 27 years. Who in the Christian world would have known anything about heaven or hell if the Lord had not chosen to open the sight of someone's spirit and show and teach that person about them? And what follows here is because you can't get around, if you're going to do any engagement with Swedenborg's material and all the cool insights and thoughts in there, there's the elephant in the room is that he's saying that he went to the heaven and the hell and traveled out of his body.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, we may not be shocked by those kinds of things these days, but back in the day, and still now, that's pretty far out there, man.
A lot of people, especially sort of your kind of scientific or materialist people, philosophers and stuff, just like that didn't happen. I'm just telling you it didn't
happen. And so what he's trying to say to his Christian audience, who is faithfully attacking him right now, he goes on, I'm not going to read them all, but he says, look, it may sound weird that I have had these visions and things, but this happens all the time in the Bible. And he lists them all. He says that John in the book of Revelation sees all these things, the tabernacle, the ark, the altar in heaven. Peter in Acts had things, Paul and the prophets. Ezekiel saw those 4 creatures. Zechariah saw a man riding among the myrtle trees. Daniel, he lists all these things. You say, look, this has happened. There's a precedent for this in Christianity. And then at the end he says, from these and many other passages in the Word, it is clear that things of this nature in the spiritual world have appeared to many people, both before and after the Lord's coming, meaning Jesus Christ. Why be surprised that this is also happening now when a new church is beginning, when the New Jerusalem is coming down from heaven?
Wow.
So that's the mic drop. And so you can talk a good game, but what's in it? What is he trying to give the human race? What ideas are in there? What value can they have? We're going to look at that next. So we begin our journey through the spiritual food, because so we're talking a lot about the covering and stuff, but what does this do to change the mind and heart? What is it? What medicine does it offer? We're going to talk for a little bit about the divine design, and this is from 49 in the first volume. We cannot comprehend God's omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence.
A pretty heady topic.
Sure. Unless we know what the divine design is, and unless we learn that God is the divine design, and that he imposed that design on the universe as a whole and on everything in it as he created it. So we can't, the things that make God God, that God is really strong and really smart and everywhere, you can't get that unless you get this thing he's calling the divine design.
Yes, right.
And that somehow he took this design that he is and imprinted on everything, right?
Everything.
So everything. So what is everything? God is omniscient. That is, he is aware of, sees, and knows everything down to the least detail that happens in keeping with the divine design.
And because he is that design,
yes.
It's like, I don't know, this is sort of a creepy analogy, but a spider in its web, it feels everything that's going on in the web.
Yeah.
Because it spun that web and it's sitting right there and it's touching it. So he's got this whole web that he's conscious of in the whole universe.
The divine spider. I don't know if that's inside or outside the design to compare God to a spider. Spiders are cool. They're good. Yeah, they can keep the bug population down. And by contrast, is aware of, sees, and knows what goes against the divine design.
Aha. So he sees what's in the right relationship to God first, and then the sour notes, he hears those too, but they're secondary.
Like if, is that in or out of the divine design? God knows. I don't know. It's got to be one of those two.
Yeah.
And more specifically, though, he's looking at you and I and like what we're thinking and focusing on. And he knows like, this is great. That's a keeper. And Curtis, nope, he's got to get off of that. I'm going to ease him out of this. And so it is with everything. The more we follow the divine design in the way we live, and why would he care if we lived in the design? Because of this. The more we receive power against evil and falsity from God's omnipotence, receive wisdom about goodness and truth from God's omniscience, and are in God because of God's omnipresence.
Wow.
God is trying to equip us with some stuff that's going to lift us out of all the pain and fear and misery of life.
And the implication in there is that the more we live in the divine design, as if we have a choice, which I believe we do, of how much we buy in. We can just go crazy in the, hell-bent in the wrong direction or something.
Yes, we can.
And we won't be as much in those things that are just listed there.
Yeah.
But we have an option to move in a better direction, and then we'll have more of those kind of divine qualities in a way that he's listing there.
The more that we embody those truths, if I could refer back to the icebreaker. Okay, so what's next?
Okay, well, he makes some interesting points in the chapter about the Lord, the Redeemer. Here's True Christianity number 81. And he makes these in sort of a bullet point. He does love his bullet points.
Oh, man.
Number 1. And this is just like a little primer on who God is or something.
Yeah.
Jehovah, the creator of the universe. That's what you see as the Lord in small caps in some Bibles, right? Or Yahweh, people say now. Jehovah, the creator of the universe, came down and took on a human manifestation in order to redeem people and save them. So that's saying Jesus is Jehovah. That's who came down into the world. Number two, he came down as the divine truth, which is the Word. It says in the beginning of John that, the Word was with God and it became flesh and dwelt among us. But he did not separate the divine goodness from it. So it wasn't divine truth without the love in it.
Sure.
Both were there. And three, in the process of taking on a human manifestation, he followed his own divine design. And I love that last point because, we may feel like, well, our bodies just develop the way they are through some random thing, and that's why we have to go through teething, and that's why we go through awkward phases like your 60s and stuff like that. But there's a design to this whole thing about being a little infant and then a child and then growing up and everything, and the Lord went through that, and that's the design. There's an order to it.
One of the flags that Swedenborg plants about the nature of God is that God does have structure. That God is not just an amorphous blob of power, that there is a design.
Or some force like electricity or something, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't have any components or any, I don't want to say limitations, but something close to them. And that he's saying, God coming down to be Jesus, isn't it weird? Why didn't he just...
Right.
Why go through the same process?
Manifest and be 80 feet tall and
wouldn't it be better just in general for people to just get boomed into existence? The thing that we all go through is the optimal way anything can pan out because this is the divine design. So that's crazy. Okay.
Sweet.
Let's just take a look at one more. What makes goodwill or love, you would call it, being good to other people, and faith or believing the right things, your code of ethics, what makes those things real? So this is...
What an interesting question.
Yeah, this is
because a lot of people say, well, I'm a person of faith, but are they or really, what makes it real?
Goodwill and faith do nothing for us when they are attached to only one part of our body, meaning our head.
Interesting.
But are not anchored in actions.
Huh.
This is clear from a
So they're rattling around in your head, but you're not doing anything.
Or you maybe say, I believe in being a loving person,
yes, right.
But anybody who's had to hang out with you knows that's not true.
Yeah, right.
This is clear from 1,000 passages in the Word, of which I will cite only the following here. And we didn't put
and then what's the ...
Because this is all the passages that wouldn't fit. Look, he's in Matthew 7, goes to Luke, and what's he?
He's got in Luke.
What's he
in the
doing
Gospels,
here?
John. There's John. Oh, there's Romans and James, epistles.
Yeah.
Paul.
Why is he listing so many?
I think he's showing you that this is all over. Oh, look, he's gone into the Old Testament now.
Yeah.
He's showing you it's all through the Bible, and he's just cherry-picked those passages which make it so clear that your actions determine your outcome and your salvation and all that. And that was a big point that was contested. People were saying, no, it's just your faith, and you're supposed to do good works, but they contribute nothing to your salvation. And he's saying, oh, come on, look at this.
And it's supposed to be saying, look, I'm not some weird little offshoot. I'm not saying, forget the Bible, it's outdated, and I'm going to come up with my new Swedenborg religion based on my spiritual experiences. I'm actually doing the thing in the text that your current form of Lutheranism that's around me is not doing.
Yes, and it's striking because in some places in his books, like in Secrets of Heaven that we talked about a few episodes ago, he will say, well, Jacob means this and the well means that, and this is what. But these passages he takes pretty literally, like your deeds, it's based on your deeds. That's how you go to heaven or not.
We better finish this quote because it's just hanging up there on the page.
There are a good quote, though.
Thousands of other passages like these.
I see, okay.
On this basis, one can clearly see that goodwill and faith are not goodwill and faith before they exist in actions.
Ooh.
If they exist only up in the sky or in the mind above actions, they are like images of a tabernacle or a church in the air that are just strange aerial phenomena that spontaneously disappear. So just images, just holograms. They are like paintings on paper, here we go with some analogies, that bookworms are chewing through. They're like living on a roof with no bed rather than in a house. Have you ever done that?
That would be uncomfortable.
James Taylor from
You
all
got to
this.
get the pillow on the right side or something.
You can
fall off.
see that goodwill and faith are transient entities when they are merely mental. When there's an opportunity for us to do them, they culminate in actions and become embodied in them. And this really brings us back to the icebreaker, because it's asking you and I and everyone,
Yeah.
when have you actually done it? There's a lot of talk about, oh yeah, we love our neighbor, we're all about love and fairness and justice, but yet under the umbrella of all kinds of, Christian and other religious traditions, you can do all kinds of mean and horrible things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
So, how can it help? Why? And I want to say something about this book.
Okay.
This is the only one in the New Century Edition that actually says in it, translated, you're the editor of this series, but translated by Dr. Jonathan Rose.
Oh.
So you had a major hand in getting this thing out there.
It's true.
Why do that, man? Why spend your time doing that? What can this
know.
book offer?
It was the folly of youth, I think. No, the
it's Saturday night. You say, had a few, I'll translate
I'm gonna
something.
translate a few more.
Yeah.
It was such an awesome thing to work on, because it just blew my mind going through there line by line the way you have to translate it. And I think it's still, like, what it's talking about hasn't gone out of style yet, meaning that some of those ideas like vicarious atonement, or the idea that you can... Vicarious atonement would be the idea that Jesus died on the cross for your sins so you don't have to change your life.
Right.
He sort of took care of it.
To appease a furious God.
Yes, he did that for you, and God was mad, and now he's not so mad, and so you can get away with it.
That's still out there.
And that's still out there. The idea that repentance can just be done by saying, I'm nothing but filth from head to toe, or something like that, but not really looking at yourself and changing anything, and things like that. A lot of what it talks about in there, it's really a great summary. I mean, it's got these great chapters. The second volume has chapters on freedom and rituals and the coming new church. It ends with kind of a bang. It's just a great book.
Two things. I was recently found myself thumbing through volume 2 of this, and I pulled out, it's not all theology kind of stuff. It's very much spiritual tools. There's two things, this is for you guys, that I picked out of there. First was, the Lord is a love of usefulness.
Wow.
That's in there. And think about what that means. So Swedenborg has this assertion that we all are what we love, that each individual human being loves is a particular love of a particular thing. That's really what you are. It's not the shape of your body. So the Lord, so I'm a love of something, you're a love of something. What's the Lord? The Lord is the love of doing something useful for someone.
Wow.
That's what God is. Not to say that doesn't dehumanize God, because every person is a love of something. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Then another thing that was in there, let me make sure I can remember it. Is the correct use of your something, some kind of spiritual faculty, is to be focusing. The correct use of your spiritual freedom is to be focusing on your state after death as you do things.
Wow.
And think of that as a mental tool. That as I'm sitting here and my car tire pressure light is indicating that my sensor is broken and I'll have to get it repaired soon, as I am receiving news that is, oh, this thing I tried didn't work, that what I'm focusing on is my state after death. That is a tool that will lift you out of some things.
Yeah, and that chapter on repentance in there is just the best to me. It's the clearest and very practical. It walks you right through what it is. It's an active process, and here's exactly how you do it. You pray and you ask the Lord for strength, and it's so awesome. Yeah, it has a lot of really practical, and it's really kind of a marriage, as some of those passages indicate, of faith. Here's what to believe, and here's what to do. It's kind of got all of it in there.
I don't think it is for Christians, but it's also for humans. Like, I think you could pull.
It's a great book for humans.
If you had an aversion to everything Christian, you'd have a lot of stuff but there's plenty in there that you could really take and use and do.
And honestly, if you had an aversion to Christianity, you might hear him criticizing the same stuff you're averse to.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like he might be like, yeah, I hear you, I feel you.
So that's what we have to say about that. What do y'all think? Do you have any questions? Did that spur anything in you that made you wonder about something else or something more? Because now we're going to do our live Q&A. Okay, what's on your mind? I mean, right now we're going to do an actual thing where we're looking in the chat room for questions you're asking right now. We're going to try our best to answer them. So let's see what people are thinking about. Here's the first one. Asher Raymond asks, why does it seem that it is so difficult for our loved ones and angels to communicate with us, yet evil spirits can be so loud in our mind? And for anyone who's unfamiliar, Swedenborg says that everything mental is coming from either heaven or hell. That's just what consciousness is this larger link up with, much like here you have a link up with all kinds of media outlets and think tanks through what you see on social media and programming and what's on the radio. There he's saying spiritually that comes through heaven and hell are both effectively broadcasting in our minds. And if you ever had a mind, you may notice that the negative stuff, the worry, the fear, and all the impulses to harmful things, that stuff comes through loud and clear. It's very easy to worry about something. It can be difficult to get good feelings about things. So why is that?
Why it seems that way is because it is that way.
Thank you.
And I think I can do even better than that. No, first of all, it strikes me that in that first element in the question, you're actually wanting to have some kind of contact, like there's an actual communication between your loved one and you, some kind of exchange, however brief, to say, I'm feeling okay, and sorry you're going through the grief, or whatever, whatever the exchange might be. The Lord is pretty careful that most of the time, that second category is not actually the result of conscious contact. Like the evil spirits don't know. They may be loud as anything, and they are.
Yeah.
But they don't know they're with you. They're not doing it at you or to you. They don't know you're there because they'd try to destroy you if they were. Right. They're just partying and having a good time. Yeah. They don't realize you're in the room, kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's a little bit of a difference that sort of that allows for that loudness. Another one is about where our consciousness is. Obviously, that when our consciousness, a lot of the time, it's just with the kind of spiritual elevator that we have. We're more conscious lower down than we are higher up. So it's naturally quieter up in the heavenly level than it is down where the evil spirits are. And especially when that part of yourself is active, man, it is noisy. It definitely is.
Swedenborg makes this fascinating assertion that hell has what he calls a back door into our physical senses.
Yes.
That somehow the things that the picture, not just, I see a chair, but the picture of life that we get from just observing how the outermost level of reality works, like the way the world is, and our reaction to it, particularly negative, sort of ego-ish reaction to it, that has a direct connection to hell. So it is very easy because we live in a state of mind that's very focused on what we perceive with the senses, and we need to function in this world. That's especially vulnerable to hell. Why? I would say the divine design got corrupted, if we're talking about the structure of things, somehow through stuff we don't have to get into, but the sort of centuries of humans gravitating towards what was negative, the channels have been skewed. I mean, our antenna can barely pick up heaven's signal, but yet hell, it's very good we're very close to the transistor there.
Our distant ancestors a long time ago were much better at picking up heaven signals than we are generally these days. There's some people who can pick it up, but
you used to default to heaven. You wouldn't even have to try. You have to try to go after hell. That's what Swedenborg says back way in the day. Doesn't specify how many thousand years ago or whatever it is, but that's the condition we were in, and things have fallen out now. So the other reason he gives is like inherited evil. So you have, which is kind of what we're already talking about, but because you're born with these certain tendencies to evil that you need to overcome, and those just gravitate those false thoughts to them. So the whole struggle is to get out of those. And if what we're trying to do is make that journey while we're in the world, there is actually a use to having all the negative stuff so loud, because it allows us to reject it and understand how to push it away. If it was all just good all the time, we wouldn't ever understand the need to eject this stuff, and then we wouldn't progress, and you wouldn't have this happy afterlife free of that stuff.
Other people commented on how many evil spirits were around Swedenborg, like thousands of them. And they said, what are you doing? You shouldn't be around those people.
Yeah.
And he kind of explained, you learn a lot from them. Yeah. They're useful. And I think we're allowed to be in that condition because we do learn the nature of our lower selves. It gives us some humility and all that. And under particular special circumstances, you can have that little moment of contact with a loved one or something sometimes. Yeah. It's rare. But that's a more special condition than just the kind of general noise of hell that's sort of rocking on every Saturday night kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is not how things should be. Right now. This is not the ideal. This is, when God looks at it, there's some in the divine design, but a lot of this situation is out of the divine design, because this is obviously not an ideal. You might want to check out this book. It's obviously not an ideal, I already said situation, ideal place mentally and emotionally to be. The life could be so much better than it is, and that's what the new heaven, the new church is all about. This is what we're describing in the book, trying to get us back into that happy state of heaven. Okay.
Yeah, overcome that noisy situation.
Let's take a look at the next one. Erica Lee asks, what does God think when he sees us sin? Does he think any less of us, especially when we keep backsliding on what we are supposed to be working on? Is God ever feeling like, oh, I've had it with this one. I've tried, and listen, down the road, Susie is really regenerating good. You can't put two and two together. What's up?
Yeah.
How's God feel about it?
You can't get matching spiritual socks on.
Is there any? Yeah.
I tend to think that the Lord has such a overarching view. He sees the hell that's flowing up into us. A whole chain, actually, of evil spirits, from worse to not so bad. He sees the divine origin of the thought and how it went down, how it got twisted, what they did with it, how that feeds into this, what our hereditary evil is, what the spirits who are with us are, how that gets activated, how we mistakenly think it's our own, but it actually isn't, because Swedenborg sort of hammers this idea of you could really see what was going on. You realize this is not you, you're just a choice in between there. So I think he has such an incredibly merciful, forgiving view of what's going on. And Swedenborg talks about this, that the Lord forgives us everything all the time. Now, we still need to take certain actions to overcome stuff, but he's never sort of like, oh, I can't, this is the 13th time. He just doesn't get into that state. I think he really sees the whole thing, and he just loves us with this incredible love, far beyond what any parent loves in their child, and I think of course kids fall down, scrape their knee and stuff like that happens.
A couple of things that I think would be relevant to the question. First of all, True Christianity 56. It's actually in the other volume. God is incapable of looking at us with a frown. So picture the facial expression you think God is making at you when he's exasperated. If it's got any kind of frown in it, it's impossible, right? That God is love. Second, to piggyback on what you were saying, whenever you learn about, there's some documentary about somebody who did bad things, and you're like, what a terrible person. But then you learn, oh, they were abused when they were a child, they had no stability. Immediately, within reason, you start to feel some sympathy. Okay, I could get how they could get led into this.
How you get there.
How much more so when God understands everything that's pushed us in that direction.
The generations going back, or what, just sees a big picture. Yeah.
And you might want to know that God absolutely loves everybody in hell.
Yeah.
We're researching a show right now that it doesn't matter how bad you've ever gotten, that God has nothing but love for you. So there's no way that just a little backsliding is going to be a deal breaker. He's very peaceful about that whole situation. And I feel like hell loves to accuse of evil, right? So any thoughts and feelings you're getting about, oh, I'm backsliding, I'm so terrible,
right?
That's got to be hell pouring that stuff in.
That's right, and they want you to think it's God. Yeah. Because if you thought it was just evil spirits, you'd say, oh, you're just trashing me here.
Yeah, and generally, as somebody once said, evil people aren't worried that they're evil. You know, if you're like, oh, I'm trying and fail, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You know,
Lord's really have to. Wow. Hey, there's a.
Yeah.
You know, you see the people who backslide and don't or love it. You know, love the backsliding.
Yeah. It's really it's not even. It's not what you do, but it's what do you wish you were doing? Like, what do you want? Like, what do you intend? I mean,
what do you intend?
All over the place, Swedenborg talks about, even we were just in the last episode about married love, and he says, oh, people sometimes mess up and do things that are outside the ideal.
Yeah,
but if
right.
they come to their senses and don't, and reject what they did, it's got to be that way with everything. It's about your intent. It's what do you justify? And doesn't it feel different? Again, somebody did something terrible in the past. If they're in the courtroom and they just are smug and don't care, isn't that such a different thing than someone who's broken up and like, I was young, I totally regret and don't like what I did. Those are night and day, you know?
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's
a great question. Let's do one more, but before we get to this one, elevator pitch is coming up next. Do you want to make us look stupid? Get your elevator pitch ideas in there.
Even better.
What's one little
than usual
topic from Swedenborg? What's one concept, one little bit of it that you want us to try to explain without any preparation in a minute? 1 minute's time. Get those in right now, and let's take a look at our last question here. Janie Roberts asks, if you want to start reading Swedenborg, yes, go on. Should you just read them in the order that they were written? Is that the best way to study his works? This is why we're doing this series too, because we want to. Part of why we're going into all these books and stuff is we're trying to empower you. We've both gone in through reading these like archaic books and found stuff that is very valuable to us in life. That is, dare I say, a treasure. And we want to arm you to take that journey as much as you can in the hopes that it will be as valuable to you or you'll get some good out of it. So what do you do? Do you just pick up the first volume of Secrets of Heaven and start reading his first book and start reading it? What do you do?
That could be a challenge. Some people do that and get a lot out of it, but some people are sort of a little daunted by all the scriptural stuff in there or something. I tend to advise people to pick a topic of interest to you. So if you're interested in the afterlife, go for heaven and hell.
Yeah.
If you want to know about creation and reality or something, try Divine Love and Wisdom or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're interested in spiritual experiences, True Christianity is great. It's full of experiences. And
if you're interested in why do bad things happen to good people, read Divine
Providence.
That's right.
Really awesome. And we have a video that we've done called Who Was Swedenborg and What Should I Read, where we try to get you hooked up based on your interests with like 5 starting places.
Yeah.
That different things light different people up.
Yeah.
And luckily there's a lot of kind of gates or ports of entry into this thing.
And I would say, check out this series that we're doing here, because we've just gone through we'll have one more after this. We've gone through just about every major thing. We skipped some of the smaller ones that he's written. So I would say,
Yeah, and if something appeals to you in there,
look at the titles, watch the little beginning, whatever starts to grab you, and watch that episode. See if getting into that book seems like the right one. And I would say, another thing, if you're going to start reading Swedenborg, be aware, it may not be that fun right away.
Right.
Because it can be difficult and dense, but also I find that a lot of stuff is going to be strange and foreign. If you just start reading Swedenborg, it'll seem like he's saying some things that bother you. I find for me, the more I get a comprehensive picture of what he's writing, the more it does make sense and seem to be uplifting rather than constricting. So ride loose when you start. If something's perplexing or seems negative, say, okay, well, maybe that will resolve itself. I'm not saying you may read 2 books, 3 books, and then finally all right, I don't like this anyway, and that's totally fine. But you may also find, like I did, that the more you understand the full picture, because there's tons of stuff that when I read it now, if I had no prior background in Swedenborg, I would be very perplexed by or offended by. But now I say, okay, I get what that means in the bigger context.
I think that most people find heaven and hell the easiest point of entry.
Heaven and hell rocks.
It's a really great one. And if you're getting bogged down at the beginning of heaven and hell, skip a few chapters and read ahead. And I say that because the way that Swedenborg cross-references his work, I really think he's expecting people just to dip in.
Yeah.
Because he'll point you elsewhere. If you're interested in this, here's a little line back there.
That's right.
He didn't think everybody would just start at the beginning and plow through, sort of thing. Even in his very first book that he brought out, he had a little cheat sheet of, here, skip to the end of the chapter, I talk about this,
right.
kind of thing. So he wants you to just have some fun and find your way around it.
And if you take that journey, if anybody out there does, let us know how it's going. Leave a comment on any of these videos. Get in touch with us via Facebook or email or Swedenborg.com. We'll help you out. We'd love to be your companions in that journey. Thanks, everybody, for the Q&A. Now we're on to elevator pitch. Hopefully we've got a couple topics, and we'll see how good we really are at this whole thing. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is the segment where we try to imagine ourselves in a scenario in which we have to explain a Swedenborg thing to a regular person.
I've never done that.
Under duress, under a time limit here. So what we're going to do is imagine we both stepped into an elevator and we have to explain some topic that you guys have picked out. Now we would have to say not just what it is, but why it's important to this person. We get the span of 1 minute to do it. Oh, do you want to rock, paper, scissors for who goes first?
Oh, okay. Sure.
Rock, paper, scissors. No, let's do it. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay.
I don't know how to do this.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay.
You got it.
I'll go first.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so
no idea.
now it's time for the elevator pitch.
You could tell me how to play that game.
And this is no. I think a lot of people do go on the third one. Maybe I have my Midwestern ways. Let's see what my topic is. Affections.
Affections. Ooh.
Okay.
Good one.
I'm gonna have to explain what affections are and why they matter. Do you ever think about who you are? What makes you who you are? Is it your job? Is it your wardrobe? Is it your success? Is it your failure? No. I'm going to tell you that what makes you who you are is what you love. And what you love is not a simple thing, like a feeling that has maybe one or two features. You are filled with this boundless number of affections, of little loves for particular things. And getting those sorted out and being able to identify which of those is positive and which is negative and which you want to fully invest in more and more often forms who you're going to be forever. This makes you who you are, and dare I say, when we get into the spiritual world, which, by the way, you're going to get into after you die, this is going to be, your affections are visible in your face, your affections are detectable through your aura a mile away. This is who you become, so pay attention to what you love. It's even more important than what you eat. Is this your floor?
Really good. Yeah, it was very good.
Thanks. I think, you uses the term affections in so many contexts, but that's certainly one of them.
That's awesome. Really, really like it.
Good.
A picture that I used to get about affections was that, like, a swimming pool, like love would be the pool.
Yeah.
But affections would be, one day it's sort of choppy because it's windy.
Yep.
Or it's frozen over, or it's very tranquil and soft, or the different states,
Yep.
the different, how it responds to different things in the environment somehow.
And he would probably say, like, a negative affection would be craving, or
that's right.
He sometimes has different words, but he'll sometimes say affections for evil, affections for good.
And sometimes it just comes down to moods and things like like envy or feelings. It's kind of a range of things. But I think of it as being how your love interacts with the environment, kind of thing.
Very good.
That was awesome.
Okay,
was really
cool. Thanks very much. Now let's see. What do we have for Dr. Jonathan Rhodes? The language of math.
The language of math.
Now, I would assume that this is language of math, like math, as some people call it, the universal language. So what about math, within the context of the Swedenborgian world? Is that something we just jettison? Or is there something?
All right. Okay.
So we're on an elevator. I just got into the elevator. Oh, hello. Could you tell me a little bit from a Swedenborgian perspective about the language of math?
What is more universally hated by elementary school children than math? They complain about, like, why do I have to do these sums? I'm never going to use this in my life. And yet Swedenborg, when he was younger, worked on something that he called the universal mathesis. He thought there might even be a way to kind of algebraically express your feelings. This feeling plus that thought equals. In other words, all things can be broken down into a kind of mathematical language math in the ancient wisdom was seen as one of the fundamental things that describe the universe. And it is kind of interesting how useful mathematics has been. And so Swedenborg, in a way, in his spiritual works, was trying to find a math of feelings, of thoughts, of how you move forward, these universals, these principles that show you the mind of God, that design that we were just talking about. And math has something to do with that design.
Hey, did you just make up that thing about when he was a kid, the mathesis of something? I never knew that.
No,
that was very apropos.
Cool. Good.
And I love it. I love it. He's trying to put you're trying to put together the math of this. If mathematics is truly when you boil physics down, it's all mathematics. He's giving you this spiritual mathematics, and so much so that was great. I really loved it, and it's so much so that. Angels, the highest angels, when they speak, it sometimes floats down as numbers.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think of that, but it's true. The highest heaven, they'll express these amazing things in numbers that you can't say in any other way. Yeah. That was a great job. Good.
That was awesome.
Good.
All right, so now let's see. Thank you, everyone, for your concepts and your time and effort. We want to try to give it back a little bit by letting your voice be heard, which we'll do in our Ice Melter section now. Okay, if you remember back at the beginning, we had this question. What is a truth you've managed to embody in your life? If you're watching after the fact, write yours in the comments. And we'd love to hear this from everybody who comes across it, because this embodying a truth in life, this is the machine working. This is the church, right? So this is what people had to say. Surrender.
Oh boy. Good one.
A truth I've lived is that I can't do anything on my own.
I love that.
Yeah. I have always tried to help someone, and I always try to find someone that I should help.
Yeah, right. Identify that person.
The truth I come with is that the remnant left over from who we are is the most beautiful part of us.
Nice.
Moderation in all things.
That's good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Look at these. These are awesome. Allowing people to show me who they are.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. God can help anyone.
Right.
I've learned from NDEs, the other side is about forgiveness and loving others. So I try a lot harder in this life.
Okay, because you see what it's all about. Yeah.
I'm third, the Lord is first, my family and friends are second.
The categories of love.
These are awesome principles here. That we do go on in spirit, which has strengthened my faith in God and has given me a genuine inner peace.
That the Lord is responsible for all the good and love everywhere, not me or anyone else. The truth I try to embody is that helping others with no thought of gain is the best way to lift the vibration of the planet.
Nice.
Open-mindedness. I can learn something from every situation. As we once heard an interview on this channel, nobody knows everything about anything.
Right.
The truth I've managed to embody in my life is that I don't have to live in mental turmoil. There is such peace that comes by surrender to the Holy Spirit.
Nice. Learning to detach from negative thoughts that come up in my mind. Just saying, that's not me, and moving on instead of self-incrimination. Really good.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve. Be good to neighbors. So learn to see the shining part from people around me and treat them with sincere care and respect, being empathetic.
Look for the good.
The truth that I've been able to internalize is the love of God for all people and His desire for all to experience the most peaceful existence possible. These are really moving.
Yeah. The realization that honesty of my intent moves me in a positive and loving direction. Let's see, spiritual gravity. Stop overthinking and stop trying to control every aspect of my life. I've been learning let it go and let it happen as on its own time. That all life comes from God and that we are nothing without Him. Which can be surprisingly comforting to learn that you're nothing, as I've found it in my own life as well.
I was very moved by those responses because I could glimpse what Swedenborg says about everybody is their own love and their own understanding.
Yeah.
You know, like you become the embodiment of that principle that you care about.
Right.
And it's very painful when you fail at that thing that you care about. You know what I mean? Like it can torment you sometimes if you feel like I really care about this and I let this person or this situation down. But that's still building you up to become an embodiment of that thing.
We're both letting everyone down right now.
That's right.
Yeah, it's totally cool to see the way that every individual person sees things from a perspective that I can't quite see it, but I can get it when you talk about it.
Yeah. As soon as you say it, it's like, oh, yes.
So we so much appreciate you all
gems.
hanging out, sharing your gems with us, and we just want to hang out with all of you as much as possibly possible. So we do a lot of programs. We have this one every Monday night. We also have News from Heaven on Thursdays and Saturdays, where we'll break it. There was one number in here about God's omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence that we had recently broken down in News from Heaven. If you want
nice.
It was 4 steps to receiving power from God. Really cool.
That's where you take a deep dive in a passage of Swedenborg. It's like blowing just one of these quotes up and living in there for a while, and Curtis draws pictures and everything. It's good.
Which is worth the price of admission. Also, like and subscribe. This is the fuel that lets YouTube know this thing is hot. We need to show more people this stuff. We'll get the ideas out there. And also, we're a nonprofit, so you may notice these videos are free. We give the books away, the e-copies for free. If you want to make this possible, consider joining us on Patreon. We're a nonprofit, so if you sign up for Patreon, you can give a little bit every month, and that helps us do everything we need to do.
That's right. It's a real blessing to us.
Yeah, so we give you a little thank you in terms of some personal Q&A and then also some behind-the-scenes footage, just little stuff to say thanks for making it happen. Thanks to all of you for being part of it. And we're going to wrap this series up, the Tour of Everything, next Monday.
Really?
With a little work that is called Swedenborg's Journal of Spiritual Experiences.
Whoa.
One of his longest and I would say most fascinating
he didn't publish it, although he pulled stuff out and published it. And so this one is sort of running in the background behind all these other ones.
It's kind of the underlying material from which everything springs. Very much worth tuning in. So I trust we'll see you Monday night and everywhere in between. Hope you have a great week going out, taking truths, whatever moves you, embodying that stuff, and life gets better.
That's right. Good going, everybody.
See ya.
Swedenborgian Life Live is Curtis Childs, host and showrunner, with co-host Jonathan Rose. Live stream tech and graphics by Stuart Farmer and Matthew Childs. Show writing and chat moderation by Karin Childs and Chelsea Odner.